In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I got a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Jillian White. She's hailing over from the folks over at Aloft. She's the head of growth at the team over there. And yeah, essentially, what Aloft is working on is real estate valuation, but reimagined. So we want to really figure out what that actually means, how Jillian is thinking about the growth and operations of the organization, and just learning about her journey as well. So Jillian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So maybe give us a quick 360 overview on Aloft. What is it all about in your own words?
So, Aloft is a property technology company, and we provide appraisal services. And we provide these appraisal services for a number of different use cases. However, the most common one and the most common client that we have are lender clients who are in need of appraisal services, either for a purchase transaction or for a refinance transaction.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe tell us then more a little bit about it. So how do they use Aloft? Like why do they come and what do they do with Aloft?
So at Aloft, there are two really clear differentiators. The number one has to do with our business model. So most appraisal companies utilize independent contractors. Within the country, there are about 40,000 appraisers, and everybody is dipping into the same pool, trying to engage them for their particular assignment. This works pretty well most of the time. However, if you ever come up in a situation where there's a shortage of appraisers or you need an appraisal done really quickly, everybody is going into the same pool of people. And so, if you have any sort of concern or friction point in regards to the quality of the reports or the customer service, it is incredibly difficult to go back to that independent contractor and really hold them accountable for the work product and the customer service. At Aloft, all of our appraisers are staff. So they complete appraisal orders for us and us alone. And so therefore, we're able to really hold them accountable, not only for the quality of the reports, but the kind of experience that they give to our customers. So that's one big differentiator. And then the other one is the technology piece. Appraisals are really archaic. There haven't been any sort of major innovations in many, many decades. And I think the best illustration at this point is that the appraisal forms that appraisers use were originally created for the typewriter. And so now you take an industry that's working on forms created for the typewriter and you pair up a tech team. There's just a lot of potential to unlock inefficiencies in the process, and also having like a fresh set of eyes take a look at it and say, okay, if we were really to build this from the ground up, let's do so. So the combination of having staff and having the tech team really gives us a dynamic leverage point as a company.
Super interesting. Now, who would you say within the organizations that are getting your clients is typically the champion? Like who is actually raising their hand internally and says we need a loft within our organization?
So it depends on the size of the organization. If it's a relatively small organization, whoever is responsible for the appraisal department will say, "Oh my goodness, we need their support. We're having extended turn times in these territories." However, when you get into the larger national banks like the Chase banks or the US banks or any of the really big players, the Wells Fargo's, at that point, it's really important to figure out who the particular like market manager is. And also there are lots of different funnels. So like who's handling the ordering of appraisals for the Northwest region for conventional loans. It gets really granular. And so sometimes it's incredibly hard to figure out who is the decision maker, especially as the organization gets larger.
Very good. Now, how would you say do those individuals hear about Aloft? Like, what's the sort of the channels that you guys leverage for growth?
So up until recently, all the channels have been fairly organic. The growth team at Aloft is very new, but right now what we're doing is focusing a lot on getting our name out in terms of conferences, and then also participating in any sort of speaking engagement, or within the industry, there are a lot of listening sessions where government entities want to get input. And so just by being seen consistently at all of these different venues and events, that's been a really great opportunity for us to get the word out to a very large audience relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm. So maybe tell us a little bit about the role of the head of growth, right? Because we've had, head of growth, head of revenue, head of marketing, like on the shows. And what's striking is that the role can be shaped and have very different focus areas. Maybe tell us a bit about the role, and how you're fulfilling that role, basically.
Yeah, so when I started at Aloft, originally it was supposed to be business development and really building out the sales team. And very quickly it became apparent that marketing and sales would have to work very closely together. So now marketing comes under that umbrella. So, in the most basic terms, growth at Aloft is sales and marketing, and then also like long-term partnerships and business dev. So a little mix of anything. And it most certainly has been evolving in the time and tenure that I've been there. And I imagine that's going to continue.
Very cool. Now, I'd love actually to deep dive into that a little bit and in a way, learn about how you are keeping educating yourself as a head of growth, because there's so much things if you're overlooking sales and marketing that you could learn, that you could try, that you could do. Where do you personally like to research? Where do you get like quality information that helps you to, make better decisions? Is that, some peer groups? Is that LinkedIn? Is that blogs? Like, where do you like to learn?
The answer is yes. So all of the above. My favorite source of information thus far has really been talking to other heads of growth or other heads of sales. And every conversation I have with them, I say, hey, are there any resources that I should be taking a look at? And so most commonly what they'll do is recommend a book that's really helped them grow their team. So tapping into other people who have been in this position for longer, and also trying to get ahead of any of the roadblocks that they've experienced, and saying like, are there any walls that me and my team do not have to bump our heads up against, considering that the team is very new. We're only about 9 weeks old now. And then in addition to that, I am new to this aspect of appraising, even though I'm not new to the appraisal industry.
Very cool. I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
I am ready.
What is the last book that you read?
Ooh, The Seven Wives of Evelyn Hugo.
What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Something that we're calling the Bean Plan. So small clients who are able to convert in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would fix for your role as a head of growth?
Ooh, the one thing I would fix, I would have immediate transparency at the greatest granular level right now today. So all the call audits, the success rates, all of it would be completely built out. And I'd have like a dashboard with every question I could ever ask being answered.
Very cool. Very thought through, actually. Very, very, very good concept that you built out there in a couple of seconds. Awesome. Last question would be, if we do a little bit of time travel and go back to the days of Columbia University, right? Now you're heading out of formal education into the world of business and growth. And what would be your advice for your own journey that you would give yourself?
Oh, okay. Going back to my Columbia days, I would say, Jillian, definitely take a few economics classes. All of my education was focused in the sciences, and I'm not in the sciences, I am in business. So just having that like basic rudimentary foundational understanding of economics and the interplay of different companies and world dynamics, I think that would have been really helpful. So that's what I have told my Columbia self.
Very cool. Now, we really appreciate you joined us for the Pathway Presents podcast. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Aloft, what's the one thing that they should remember?
If you're looking for continuity of experience and high quality, Aloft Appraisal is the company to use.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathway Presents.
All right. Thank you for having me.